Hey everybody, this is Perch. There's a viewer mail we got here about an arch-nemesis. So let's see what this says. It says, hey Perch, hope you're doing well. I got two questions. My first is, when are you opening up your shop and what's the address? I would love to buy some comics from your shop. Very nice of you. I keep to give you the same answer I've given now for a while. Hopefully soon. Moving down to Texas shifted things. But at this point, I think Mumbles is pretty much, of all the insults, is the absolute most correct one of just, I don't know, limbo. You dumbass, get it done. Not Mumbles, me. So there's a lot going on, as I've kind of inferred in some other videos. There's just a lot going on, and I'll be honest. I don't know. There are some good shops down here in Texas. I don't know if I want to open a shop here. I had a good plan where I was, so but I'm not moving back anytime soon. Anyway, enough of that personal business. Here comes the actual comic question. It says, my next question is a writing question, and it has to do with arch-nemesis. Nemesis. I'm not sure, to be honest. There are several famous comic book rivalries. There's Batman and the Joker, Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, Superman and Lex Luthor, Wolverine and Sabretooth, Perch and Arby's. Also, Perch and his liver, if you think about it. Shazam and Black Adam, and so on. However, there are plenty of characters who either don't seem to have one of their arch nemesis, or don't seem to have one, or their arch nemesis hasn't shown up in a while. I confess that I haven't read too many Iron Man comics, but when was the last time the Mandarin showed up? Who is Captain Marvel's evil rival? And is Magneto becoming a good guy a good idea? I haven't read the Krakoa X-Men, so if Magneto becomes bad again, I don't know. I mean, kind of, they're all bad in a way, if you think about it. I don't know. I feel like the current writers of both Marvel and DC gave the heroes some arch rivals to go up against. It would really help the stakes. Instead, it seems like every writer creates a new villain. Yeah, there's a reason for that. Who either shows up way too much in every other character series, or is defeated and then never seen again. I think Marvel and DC would greatly benefit from slowly developing arch-nemesis for characters. What do you think? Well, I mean, I think absolutely is what I think. Now, keep in mind, it's not just Marvel and DC. This absolutely works for indies as well. And, in The Walking Dead, one of the reasons why I think that was successful is it did use some very standard kind of writing methods. And one of those was the arch-nemesis. Rick had the governor, and then later Negan. But even later in the series, like, he would be, when the governor was long dead, he would dream about the governor. There'd be this feeling like it set up this feeling of a major villain for him to face. It wasn't a superhero comic, obviously, but it worked. Same thing, his other title, Invincible, had the arch nemesis that they would go up against. Not iconic in the same way as Marvel and DC do it, but if you're an indie company, having that method, that piece in your book is a smart idea. Now, as for Marvel and DC, I mean, a couple factors. Keep in mind, for one thing, when you see a new villain being developed, one thing that's going on is the writers hoping to get a new villain into the picture that will then be translated to the movies, and some royalties will come their way. That's what they're hoping for. I think in some cases people get surprised when they realize how low those royalty checks ultimately are, but all the same, that's the dream, and so that's a bit of what you see. The other problem here, and this will sound super progressive, but here's one of those ways where I can tell a lot of political arguments are phony, because if you take them to their conclusion, then the people who disagree with what I'm about to say should agree. I don't. Did I say in there? I don't know. Let me give it to you. One of the problems I think the comics had for many years is when they would create the arch villain, they felt compelled to match the gender or the race to the character if the character was not a white male. So Wonder Woman, it's like, well, you got to have Cheetah, or you got to have this Giganta. You got to have women villains. And there's probably some reasons for that. I've heard, two. One, it was, we felt uncomfortable with a male character beating on a woman. And then two, I've heard that people felt uncomfortable with, Wonder Woman constantly defeating men. What would that do? But at any rate, it always was weird. They would introduce a female superhero, and then suddenly the villains have to be women. Why? Captain Marvel is the same thing. It was a Dr. Minerva. They got to have that villain. And again, that first of all, not an iconic villain. Pretty lame, to be honest, as a character. Spider Woman had a similar problem. This is common in comics. And then the same thing would happen with race to some extent, where they would build up villains, and even more recently, it's like, is it a black character? Well, the villain has to be black. Uh, I it's weird to me that and this was just kind of hit home with that What If Miles Morales series, that the Prowler is the is or the uncle, the uncle of Miles, is the arch villain slash tragic family member, and nothing wrong with that character, but can we get a different character? Miles can have more than one villain. You always go back to that villain. Every now and then, to your point, you'll see somebody else kind of show up for a little while, and then they immediately go back there. But it has been I don't know, problem. It has been a habit of comics that if the main comic character is a woman, the arch villain is a woman. If the main character is black, then the arch villain is black, and that's just that's how they line up. And I think you could have some diversity. It would be better. I think it would actually be pretty interesting if you had a super evil, male villain for Wonder Woman that was constantly spurring. They might say Hades and everything else, but that's not who people think of when they think of Wonder Woman's arch-nemesis. You think of typically a bunch of, a bunch of women in that rogues gallery. I think the same thing, by the way, just if I'm following the point to its conclusion, gets to happen a little bit with Batman, with other characters as well, where Batman has certainly some women in his rogues gallery, but the women characters always have to be, they can't be pure evil. They've got to be conflicted in some way. They've got to, they got to be anti-heroes a little bit. For a while it was, Poison Ivy, of course, Catwoman, Harley Quinn. Well, all of them, Poison Ivy, not as much, but all of them are either, full-on heroes at this point or anti-heroes. And, again, the same thing has happened in other books. So I don't know why that is, but I've given this argument out before, and I've gotten people get really, really edgy about it. But it's always the opposite of what I'd expect. To your original point, yes, characters need an arch villain. They need somebody to come around. Now you don't have that arch villain show up every issue, but you also don't, you let the arch villain kind of escape justice. I recently read this Amazing Spider-Man 900 issue, which was pretty awful. I mean, just to be honest. But one thing that was at least, it is a tiny, tiny little element, but call it a glass 1/8 full kind of thing, is basically the premise is that the Spider-Man's Sinister Six get captured. And then there's a super adaptoid in the mix that takes Sinister Six powers. And Spider-Man's fighting them, and it's like it's too much. And then he breaks the Sinister Six out, and they team up briefly. And they come to realize that the Sinister Six bickering with each other is the key to beating the super adaptoid. But the conclusion of the adventure, the Sinister Six are being teleported away somewhere, or not teleported. They're being locked in a spaceship and sent away. And Spider-Man's like, you should send them to prison, and the little living brain dude is like, nah, I'm going to leave them where I found them. Now, again, hear me out. It's dumb. You should just send them, they should just go to jail. But it's helpful that you don't, if you want to have an arch villain running around out there, you can't have every adventure ending with them immediately going to jail. So it's going to weaken the character. Plus, then you're going to have to, figure out a reason why they get out of jail in order to get to the next plot. Or, worse is what the movies do. They kill him. And then you'd have no chance to build up an arch villain, because every time you build up a villain of any interest, the villain gets murdered, and then you're done. So that's a little factor there. So it's Amazing Spider-Man. At least, I know, that's the weakest of all positive things to think about. But there you go. The art was okay. But yes, you need an arch villain. An arch villain helps frame the story. An arch villain helps highlight the hero. An arch villain helps give meaning to a hero in much the same way that a truly threatening villain, an arch villain should be truly threatening, helps build the character as much as the character themselves. And I've said it before many, many times, Captain Marvel, if you really want to get her over as a character, you need to give her a villain, like a true arch villain. What was in the current run, they sort of kind of attempted to do that with Box Prime, Box Supreme. That was what it was, Box Supreme. They sort of tried to build up that, but again, the villain was kind of it didn't really go anywhere, and it's hard to, you can't say that that's Carol's arch villain. Anyway, you need one. So good mail. I totally agree. As always, villains can make, really truly threatening, terrible, terrible villains help make characters stronger if you do them right. You've got to have the threat be huge, the stakes be high. If you don't, then it feels like kind of a silly adventure. So, got to do it. Anyway, thank you very much for the mail. Let me know what you all think in the comments below, and thanks for listening.